When I first heard those words, "You were never supposed to," I felt their weight. Perhaps I am not supposed to stand before you as someone different from what the world expected. Perhaps I am not supposed to speak of change, of sisterhood, of transformation, yet here I am. From the earliest moment I was given a title, a name, a place. The daughter, the heir, the sister, and my younger sister stands beside me, not as a shadow, but as a partner in a journey that none of us ever quite wrote in advance. She and I, two sisters moving forward together, recognizing that we were never supposed to merely occupy roles, but to shape them. So tonight I speak to you of what happens when you take the words "you were never supposed to," not as a limitation, but as a beginning. Body first, let us think of identity and expectation. From birth I carried the expectation of what was supposed to be duty, decorum, responsibility. But I learned that identity is not merely given. It is discovered, it is claimed, it is grown. I learned that the supposed to does not define the horizon. It invites us to create the horizon. And so I say to you, you were never supposed to be only what others expect. You were supposed to be more. You were supposed to reach beyond. Then comes sisterhood and shared path. My sister and I walk together, each with our own pace, each with our own voice. When the world says, "You were never supposed to," we choose to say, "Yes, we will," because the path we walk is not the path laid out for us alone. It is the path we create together. To my sister, thank you for the strength of your presence, the quiet of your support, and to all who walk beside someone else in life, may you remember that the promise of "never supposed to" can unite you, finally, service and transformation. I may stand before these words not simply to accept a place, but to transform it, to serve something greater than my name. Because what we were supposed to do is not always what we should do. The calling is not just to inherit, but to act, not just to receive, but to give, not just to stand, but to move. So let us move together, toward hope, toward justice, toward a shared future. When you grow up surrounded by words that describe you before you even understand them, you begin to realize how powerful expectations can be. They are not always spoken loudly, but they are there in the way people look at you, in the way they speak your name, in the silence that follows when you take a step they did not foresee. From the very beginning, I understood that my life carried meaning beyond myself, that my actions would one day be read as symbols. But meaning is not a cage, it is an invitation, and in time I learned that to honor the meaning others place upon you, you must first discover what it truly means to you. Identity is not something handed down like a title or a uniform. It is something you grow into through choices, through experiences, through quiet reflection in moments when no one is watching. I have learned that it is not enough to know who you are expected to be. You must ask yourself who you wish to become. Expectations can guide, but they can also confine. They can inspire, but they can also silence. The balance lies in understanding that what others hope from you is a reflection of their trust, not a limit to your growth. When I was younger, I would often wonder what it meant to have a life already described by history books before it was lived. I felt the weight of traditions, of promises, of roles that seemed larger than my own understanding. But I also found in them a purpose, to prove that identity is not fixed by what is written, but formed by what is lived. Every choice, every step, every act of courage adds depth to the identity that is expected of you. It is in the quiet effort, the unnoticed work, and the unseen preparation that identity truly begins to take shape. There is a difference between being shaped by duty and being limited by it. I believe that responsibility, when embraced with sincerity, does not diminish individuality, it deepens it. It teaches discipline, compassion, and awareness. It connects you to something greater than yourself. Yet within that connection, there must always be space for authenticity, for no duty can be fulfilled without heart, and no service can last without sincerity. Identity cannot survive if it is only an echo of expectation. It must become a voice of conviction. There are moments when the reflection others see in you feels far removed from the person you are still becoming. You may be told that you were meant to be strong, composed, certain, even when you are uncertain, even when you are learning. In those moments, identity becomes a journey of trust, trusting yourself enough to grow quietly, to listen deeply, to fail gracefully, and to rise again without fear. The world may expect perfection, but what truly defines you is perseverance. I have learned to find strength not in being what I am supposed to be, but in embracing what I am still learning to become. Expectations, when met with humility, can become a form of guidance rather than control. They can remind you that you are part of a continuum, that your life carries a thread that connects past to future. But it is your responsibility to weave that thread with integrity, to bring warmth, color, and meaning to what might otherwise be a simple line of tradition. There is something profoundly human in the struggle between identity and expectation. We all face it in different forms. We are told who we should be, what paths we should follow, what choices are acceptable. And yet, the quiet courage of defining yourself amid those voices is what builds character. It is not rebellion, it is growth. It is not defiance, it is discovery. To know who you are is not to deny where you come from. It is to understand it so deeply that you can carry it forward with purpose. I have often thought about what it means to represent something greater than yourself, to stand as a symbol of unity, continuity, or hope. Such a role can easily become an identity in itself, but I believe it must never replace the person within it. The person must remain alive, curious, questioning, open, because the world does not need symbols who only repeat what is expected. It needs individuals who understand what those symbols mean, who live them with truth and heart. Identity grows strongest in moments of quiet reflection, when you are away from ceremony, from light, from applause. In those moments, you hear the honest voice inside you. It asks, what do I believe in? What do I value? What kind of world do I wish to help build? The answers are never immediate, but they come slowly, through choices made with courage. And when those answers begin to shape your path, the expectations around you start to find meaning too. I have learned to carry both the expectations of others and the truth of my own becoming. They do not have to be at war. In fact, when they meet in harmony, something remarkable happens. Purpose is born. Purpose is where expectation finds its reason, and identity finds its direction. It is not about rejecting what has been handed to you, but transforming it with understanding and compassion. The world often sees identity as something fixed, a name, a title, a role, but to me it is something that breathes, changes, and grows. It moves with time, it deepens with experience, it softens with empathy, and as you grow, so does your understanding of what was expected of you. What once felt heavy becomes a source of strength. What once felt confining becomes a framework for expression. Every generation must rediscover what its duties mean. Every person must define what their inherited identity will become in their hands. For me, it means standing with openness, ready to listen, ready to learn, ready to serve. It means holding on to the past with gratitude, but facing the future with courage. It means knowing that identity is not about perfection, but about purpose, And so I continue to walk that fine line between who I was expected to be and who I am becoming. I do not see them as opposites, but as companions. Expectation gives direction, identity gives depth. Together they create balance, and in that balance I have found peace, the kind that comes not from fulfilling every expectation, but from knowing that in doing so I have remained true to myself. Because at the heart of it all, identity is not something others define for you. It is something you live quietly, steadily, with courage. It is the promise that even within the framework of expectation, there is always space for authenticity, always room for growth, always the freedom to become. There are certain bonds that do not need words to be understood. They are written in silence, in shared glances, in the comfort of knowing someone has walked the same path beside you. For me, that bond has always been my sister, from our earliest days, before we even understood the meaning of the roles we were born into, we understood each other. There is something unspoken about growing up with someone who mirrors not just your face, but your journey, someone who understands the weight of duty, the joy of laughter, and the quiet resilience of learning to belong. When we were younger, life felt simple. We were two children exploring the same corridors, laughing at the same small things, and holding the same dreams that felt so far away. Yet even then, there was something deeper forming, an awareness that the world around us watched closely, that our steps mattered. And though that awareness sometimes felt heavy, it never felt lonely, because she was there. When the day felt long, when the noise of expectation grew louder than my thoughts, I would find peace in her presence. She has always been the quiet reminder that whatever path I walk, I do not clear it alone. There is an honesty in sisterhood that few other relationships hold. It is not always about agreement or understanding. Sometimes it is simply about being there, standing beside each other, even in silence. We have grown together, not as two separate stories, but as two threads woven through the same fabric. We share not only memories, but also the meaning behind them. We share not only the same roof, but also the same calling to serve something greater than ourselves. And yet, within that shared purpose, we each have our own light, different, but never distant. There are moments I remember vividly, moments when I was uncertain, when I wondered if I could live up to what was expected of me. She would look at me with that familiar expression that said more than any words could. It was a look of understanding, of trust, of shared courage. In those moments, I realized that strength does not always come from solitude. Sometimes it comes from the hand you know will always be there to lift you. That is what she has been to me, not just a sister, but a reflection of strength, of calm, of love that expects nothing in return. As we have grown, our paths have begun to take their own shapes. We have learned to balance individuality and unity, to respect each other's differences while cherishing the bond that makes us inseparable. She has her own voice, her own way of seeing the world, and it inspires me. Her kindness reminds me to be gentle. Her laughter reminds me to stay grounded. Her faith in me reminds me to believe in myself. And through her, I've learned that sisterhood is not about sameness, it's about connection, about knowing that no matter where life leads, there is always someone who carries a part of your heart. With them, the world sometimes sees us through titles, appearances, and ceremonies. But what it does not always see is the simple human bond beneath it all. The shared looks before a public moment, the whispered jokes between long hours, the small gestures that mean everything. Those are the moments that make the path lighter. Those are the memories that remind me that beyond roles and expectations, we are sisters, two young women learning, growing, and standing together through it all. We both know that life will bring change. It already has. With each year, new responsibilities arise, new challenges unfold, and with them, new understandings of what our paths mean. Yet, even as the world changes around us, what remains constant is this quiet promise between us, to always walk forward together, no matter how far apart our paths may seem. That promise gives strength to every choice, to every step into the unknown. Sisterhood has taught me that love can be both gentle and strong. It can lift without words, guide without force, and heal without reason. It is in her smile that I find courage before speaking, in her calmness that I find patience when the world feels loud. We have shared laughter that echoes through our memories and tears that only we will ever fully understand. In both joy and challenge, she has stood beside me, reminding me that unity is not about being identical, it is about being inseparable. There have been days when the expectations around us felt too large to carry, days when silence spoke louder than anything else. But even then, a single shared glance would bring peace. It was as though we understood that whatever came our way, we would face it not as two individuals, but as one shared strength. That, I believe, is what true companionship means, to have someone who understands without needing to explain, who listens even when you do not speak. Sometimes I think about what the future holds for us. I know that our paths may lead us to different places, with different roles and different responsibilities. But I also know that the thread between us cannot be broken by distance, nor time, nor change. It lives in the way we were raised, in the way we care, in the way we stand for each other. It lives in the promise that no matter how many steps we take, they will always echo together. We have shared lessons not only of life, but of service, of what it means to give yourself to others while remaining true to who you are. In her, I see the reflection of the same values that guide me: kindness, humility, and a quiet sense of purpose. And when I see her walk beside me, I see not only a sister, but a friend, an ally, and a constant reminder that strength does not exist in solitude. It exists in togetherness. Our path, though shaped by tradition, is also one of renewal. We are learning that service is not only a responsibility, but a bond, a way of sharing light with others. And in that we have each found our own voice. Hers is calm and steady, mine perhaps more measured, but both are part of the same harmony. Together we are learning that to serve is not to lose yourself, but to give your truest self in all that you do. I have come to understand that sisterhood is not a single chapter, it is the entire story written alongside your own. It grows, it evolves, it deepens with time, it teaches patience, forgiveness, and gratitude. It reminds you that love is not a word but an action seen in every small moment of care, every shared smile, every silent understanding that says, "I am here." And when I think of her, I think of all that we have shared and all that we have yet to live. I know that our bond will continue to grow, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet strength of knowing that we are, and always will be, walking together. No matter where the path leads, no matter how much changes, she will always be the constant light by my side, the one who understands, the one who listens, the one who reminds me that even the greatest journey is meant to be shared. That is what sisterhood means to me, not just shared beginnings, but a shared purpose. Not just growing up together, but growing through life together. It is the assurance that wherever we go, we carry each other's courage, each other's hope, and each other's heart. There comes a moment in every person's life when the meaning of service begins to change. At first, it may feel like a duty, something expected, something taught. But over time, it becomes something deeper, something that grows quietly within you. Service is not only about what you give, it is about what you become through giving. It transforms you, reshaping the way you see the world, the way you listen to others, and the way you carry responsibility. It is not a posture, it is a way of being. When I think about service, I do not think only of grand gestures or public moments. I think of the quiet ones, the unseen efforts, the patience required, the willingness to understand before being understood. Real service does not need applause. It finds its reward in the simple act of making something better than it was before. It teaches humility. It reminds you that leadership begins with listening, and that the strength to stand tall comes from the ability to kneel beside those you serve. Transformation begins where comfort ends. It happens in silence, in observation, in the moments when you realize that serving others is not a task but a calling. The world is changing faster than any of us can fully grasp. Each day brings new challenges, new voices, and new hopes. And within that change lies a simple truth: service must evolve. It must be open, inclusive, and human. It must move beyond tradition and into understanding, beyond repetition and into renewal, because service that does not grow becomes a shadow of itself. I have come to believe that transformation is not something that happens to us, it is something we choose. Every act of kindness, every decision made for the good of others, every effort to bridge differences, all of these are small transformations that shape who we are. Service refines us. It teaches us that strength is not about control, but about care. It shows us that compassion is not a weakness, but a force capable of changing lives, and that true authority is born from empathy. In the moments when I have stood before others, whether in solemn ceremonies or quiet gatherings, I have always felt a deep awareness that each word, each gesture carries meaning. Not because of position or name, but because of purpose. To serve is to accept that your life is intertwined with those around you, that your choices ripple outward in ways unseen. It is to understand that the smallest action, done with sincerity, can restore hope where it was fading. And in that understanding, transformation takes root. There are times when service demands more than we think we can give. It calls for patience when we are weary, for composure when we are uncertain, for compassion when we are hurt. But it is in those moments that transformation reveals its quiet power, because through giving you discover a strength that is not about pride or recognition, it is about meaning. It is about knowing that every effort, however small, contributes to something lasting, something larger than yourself. Service also transforms the way you see humanity. When you listen to stories of others of struggle, of perseverance, of dignity, you begin to understand that every person carries a world within them. Each face holds a history, each voice deserves to be heard. Transformation begins when you stop seeing people as distant and start seeing them as reflections of your own hopes and fears. And through that empathy, service becomes more than obligation, it becomes connection. Sometimes people imagine service as a sacrifice. And yes, it can be, but it is not loss, it is exchange. You give your time, your care, your effort, and in return you gain wisdom, perspective, and humility. You begin to understand that transformation does not come from grand changes alone, but from the consistency of doing good, even in the smallest ways. A kind word, an honest effort, a patient